BioWare is a cautionary tale. Like many of the great gaming studios of the early era, they built themselves out in service to a specific audience, in BioWare's case, the RPG cadre, with games like KOTOR, Neverwinter Nights, and Baldur's Gate. But I'm not really here to catalog their rise, but rather to discuss their fall. This sad tale really begins after they were bought out by EA. At first, all seemed well. They created two of the most influential game franchises of all time with Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And then Dragon Age 2 came and was an absolute disappointment. It sucked in ways that would make our VP jealous. This was one of the early warning signs of what was to come, as it abandoned much of the immersive aspect of its forebears for a more action-y hack-and-slash attitude. And then Mass Effect 2 came, and while it was a downgrade in some ways, it, in others, exceeded its predecessor. But Mass Effect III took the Dragon Age 2 approach and took a sledgehammer to the RPG part of the CRPG that Mass Effect was, and the endings earned exactly their fair share of acrimony for being god-awful. Dragon Age Inquisition was the middle child. It had more problems than most of the Access media would ever admit to, but it was an upgrade from Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age 2. However, it was burdened by an overemphasis on bitch work that every time I got properly into the plot would get thrown on you like getting a 5-gallon bucket of ice-cold water thrown on you mid-coitus. And how about that representation? True, it wasn't as bad as what was to come, but it was absolutely there. And speaking of what was to come, Mass Effect Andromeda.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
I know, but still we gotta go there. I promise to keep it brief. Mass Effect Andromeda was every bad tendency of this era of game developers taken to the extreme. Anita Sarkeesian was counseling the team like Grima Wormtongue, and the result was a plot with more PP politics than a whole ass-fucking episode of The Acolyte. And the result, as with all socio-political proselytizing sessions masquerading as games, was that it bombed like the Allies in Dresden. BioWare has never quite been the same. Anthem came and went with a whimper, because while it might have had the bones of a decent game at its core, Anthem was about as well supported as Salma Hayek's boobs in the Eternals and had its own mountain of problems that made it about as playable as your average Sweet Baby Inc-advised production. And now, at last, we come to Dragon Age the Veilguard. Where to begin? Well, Jesus Christ, just look at the character creator. Top surgery scars in a fantasy setting with literal polymorphic powers, and every single character looks like a terrible distillation of Le Coeur character design. And considering who made it, it's no surprise.
Finkel is Einhorn! Einhorn is a man! Oh my God! Einhorn is a man!
And there lies the actual problem. The brain trust behind Dragon Age and Mass Effect, the good games that is, left long ago, disillusioned with the studio and its horrible design decisions. Hell, one of them gets sloshed for septums. Look it up, true story by the way. And the people now in charge are the ideologues. They are the dregs that got left behind like coffee grounds at the bottom of a cup, living in the carcass of a once great studio. And like the cult mechanicum of 40k, they can only look upon the works of their predecessors and, at best, make pale imitations of what made the studio great to begin with. I know I ignored the MMO section of BioWare that made SWTOR, but that was made long before the shit had really hit the fan, and the only way I can see it as being relevant is that it works as a potential positive cash flow for a studio whose mainline releases have bled more money than the last season of Rings of Power. But, for now, ladies and gentlemen, tell me what you think down below. This has been Pete, the Radical Nerd, signing off.